Okay, so if we're trying to finish week one material, and we talked about this equation, find required insulation based on the heat loss. So if you do your project and you find one of the walls is losing a lot of heat, and you want to reduce that heat by half, by a certain amount of number, you can see how much insulation is needed. So you can add that to the wall. So this equation, where do you find it? It's in the book. The last page. It's good to find and try to locate those equations. It's in here. And you plug in the number. I will do some practice problem with that in the afternoon. So most of the lecture is going to take place at 10 o'clock in the morning. Wednesday afternoon we'll do some practice problems, and we'll do the project once we get to it. We talked also about wind and how it increases the infiltration if you have any, and how it will also change the outside temperature factor. So if you look at your phone app and you look at the temperature, and it says 70, but it feels like 50. That's based on the windshield factor. What does wind do? Wind kind of makes things a little colder. Why? Because of forced convection, right? We have forced convection this time. So the air is not staying where it's supposed to. Air is very sticky. When I walk around, there's a layer of air around me. There's a layer of air around the house. If you have wind scooping that up all the time, it's going to feel colder. Also, depending on the humidity, it can feel a little bit colder. If you have humidity taken out by wind, it will feel colder every time you hit the wind. So that's the windshield factor. So infiltration in the house will become more clear if you have more wind because of the difference in pressure. So the wind outside can make positive pressure when the wall is hitting, and also negative pressure on the other side. And that is depending on positive or negative pressure and delta T. So, for example, a small house here. Let's say the wind is from this direction. So here you'll have positive pressure. The pressure from this area is going to be pushing inside. So if you have cracks in here or here, wind will go through it. What about here? What are you going to have?
Negative
Vacuum?
pressure.
So you'll have more vacuum, and you'll have air coming outside the house from here if you have any infiltration. What about the top? So I'm not going to go into airfoil and pressure speed, but the air here is faster, right? And fast air produce also a lift or negative pressure. So you'll have more pressure coming out from your attic and eventually from here. That will be very helpful if you have a vent in the summertime. But if you have a chimney, let's put a chimney here, and the air going over the chimney, what do you think will happen? To suck more air from the house. So if the chimney going all the way here into a fireplace, more air will go from the chimney in the fire, and you can see the fire glowing more and more because chimney is subjected to negative pressure, and it will pull out all the air. That's why when you're not using the fireplace, there's always a door that you should lock, otherwise you lose a lot of heat inside the house through the fireplace. So wind has a big effect on the infiltration and heat loss, and I'm not going to get too scientific about it, but your house usually have a layer of air around it. If the temperature outside is 0 and here is 70, the temperature here is not completely 0. It's going to be maybe 2 or 3 degrees. but it stays within the air because you're losing heat. So the heat here is 70. As it goes through the wall, it's gonna heat the wall from the outside a little bit. So if you have wind, you are scooping this heat out continuously and losing more heat. So wind expedite how the house loses air. That's why if you have a more ergonomic, dome-shaped like house, probably you'll lose more heat and it will be less susceptible to wind. We get some wind here, but not as much as Chicago or other places. Okay, so we also talked about what are the ways that we can use to heat a house. The first and most common way is what? Somebody?
Convection.
Huh?
Convection.
Is it okay?
Convection.
No, to heat the house.
Oh.
Make heat inside the house.
Oh, boiler furnace.
Burning stuff.
Burning.
Combustion, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna burn wood, we're gonna burn gas, fuel oil, so we gotta either burn stuff. Second is we can use,
Acid.
huh?
Acid heating.
Yeah, passive heating, you can use that, which is soaking the heat from the sun. Or you can use the refrigeration cycle and try to pump heat inside the house from the outside, even though it's very cold. You still can collect some heat. It's not completely cold. Even at 20 degrees Fahrenheit outside, you can still harness some BTUs from there and put it inside. However, it's going to be less and less efficient. You are compressing and expanding gases to harness some heat. What else can you do?
Use the earth.
You can use geothermal.
No, like I'm saying, like like the Hobbit homes, how they're inside the ground, basically.
Say that again?
Like you know how some houses are in the earth.
Yeah, underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we said, before that if we go deep by 30 feet or 20 feet, the temperature is always constant in all seasons. So in New England, within 10 meters, which is 30 feet, the temperature is always 50. Yeah.
What's it called when they put all that sand deep under the home, and then they have these big chimney that goes up through, and they use a blower to blow air.
There, yeah.
What is that called?
I think it's called the chimney effect, and it's also geothermal with a cavern.
Right,
Yeah.
sand and.
I don't know what's the technical term for it, to be honest, but it is
You
possible.
know, virtually almost have to, almost not put regular heat in your home.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah. I don't know if small homes doing that. Maybe usually big buildings. Questions?
On the board, we have 0 Fahrenheit and 2 Fahrenheit. What's that mean? Can you
Huh?
tell? Yeah, we have 2 Fahrenheit and 0 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
What's that mean? What's difference?
Like this is far from the house, outside temperature. But if you go close to the wall, within a few centimeters, it's actually 2. It's not really 0.
Oh,
If there's no wind. But if you have wind, it's going to be almost 0, and that will cool your house faster. So combustion is the most common way now to heat houses, and it's the most efficient way, especially in a month like January or February. Even heat pumps are not going to keep up with that. If you insist on using your home, heating your home with the heat pump, you will be losing a lot of money because it's not as efficient. Those things are efficient, the heat pumps, only at moderate weather, like 50 or 40, you can use that. But when you drop below freezing, it's almost impossible to heat the house. So we use always a boiler or a furnace to heat the house, which we will do is burn and combust material. So this one is oil or gas. We have to know the basic anatomy of a boiler. We will talk about that more in the combustion control. But so for fuel, we have to do. Let's run the combustion equation again. So you need fuel plus air plus spark, heat plus water plus what? CO2 plus other stuff that you don't want. Ideally, it's what you want. This equation will be in the oil burner exam, and you have to know these components. If you get confused, think of your cigarette lighter or any kind of lighter, a match. So you have a spark, your fuel is a piece of wood, and air is around you. If you have a candle and you cover the air, it will go out. If you have a candle with no spark, it's not going to light up. If you have a candle with no wax, which is the fuel, it will not light up. So for us, we have to supply fuel, whether it's gas by a pipe or oil with a tube. We have to supply air, so incoming air is gonna come from the inducer fan here to be mixed with the fuel, and we have to provide the proper ignition to have combustion, whether complete or not. Then we're supposed to be getting heat. That's what we want. So we're trying to absorb all the heat we can. Then we get water product, which we don't really want. So that goes again with the flue pipe in here. And we have CO2, which also we don't want because we're not going to breathe that. So it will go again in the flue pipe. So heat, water, and carbon dioxide. What we want from all this combustion is just the heat. So we try to absorb the heat here in the heat exchanger and discharge all the other stuff. And we need to provide the right mixture of all these three components to maximize what we want, which is the heat. What is the average temperature of the combustion air coming out of the flue pipe in a regular boiler?
435.
400, 450, which is a lot, right? It's a lot. So you literally go with a lot of heat. What happens if your temperature at the flue pipe is 350? You'll think, hey, I'm absorbing more heat. But what does that mean?
Water will condensate inside.
So the water, which is not sometimes water, there are some other stuff that we don't want, which is sulfur oxide and nitrogen oxide. Gonna go dissolve in the water and eventually in the pipe. So this is our pipe coming from the boiler all the way outside. If the temperature here is 350, of course it's not gonna be 200 maybe, and eventually here it will be less and less. So eventually the water vapor will go in the pipe. As it loses temperature, it will start to condensate and drip back. So you're lucky if it's completely water, because water is corrosive, but it's not as corrosive as sulfur oxide. Sulfur oxide will eat your pipe, and it will drip back. It will drip back into the heat exchanger, and it will eat it out, and eventually it will have holes, and that will ruin your boiler. You have a question?
Yeah, how do we get the sulfur and the nitrogen oxide?
That's from the fuel is burning.
The fuel burning?
Yeah, so diesel, which is fuel oil, has sulfur. It is low sulfur, but there's sulfur in it.
What's the temperature when it leaves the boiler?
We try to set it at 450 to guarantee that it will not condensate in the way out. By doing that, we kind of preserve the life of the boiler, but what else are we doing? We're wasting heat, right? So now, if you go and buy a boiler, it's called a condensing boiler. You can get a condensing boiler between 2 and 5 grand, but where the temperature coming out of here is supposed to be around 50 degrees. So we will harness all this, huh?
Really 50?
Yeah, 50,
I
60.
thought like 100.
No,
80.
no. It comes really cool. That's why the pipe is made out of PVC. The vent pipe is made out of PVC. It doesn't get that hot. So what's happening here? Here we are going to have plates to collect all this condensate into a pipe as water, and we run it through a filter filled with calcium pellets to get rid of all the sulfur oxide, which this filter had to be changed every 2 years, and this will go to the drainage to drain into the sewage. This way, we're able to harness the most heat we can. Instead of like 450 or 350, we want it to be at 50, so we soaked up all the heat we want, and those boilers are on efficiency of 95%. Again, we talked about efficiency before, right?
Yeah,
There's
which is-
combustion efficiency,
Yeah.
and there is thermal efficiency. This is 95 is thermal efficiency. How much heat are we getting out of the combustion we made? For combustion efficiency, it's very difficult to go above 90. Very
Isn't
difficult.
Isn't it really high with these though? Cause they don't have to burn as hot.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be as hot, it's very efficient, you get a lot of heat out of it. And they're very small too. Now they're becoming you can hang them in the wall. The gas ones are very small, very efficient.
Condensing?
Yeah. I really like them, but however, when you want to install those, you need somebody who has good expertise. They have to have the right tilt, the right drainage, otherwise it's not going to work properly.
What?
They came long time ago. They came in the 70s. But they were more involved in installation, more expensive, and people just didn't care that much. Fuel wasn't that expensive. Now with the fuel being expensive, and I think they are becoming the code now, to install new boilers to have condensing boilers because they save a lot of fuel. Questions?
What if it's not gonna have filter? Like
That
you
it's
said?
illegal. You can drain to the sewage, but it's illegal.
But if you have a bucket underneath?
It's a lot of condensation. Yeah. Where are you gonna put the bucket? In the ground?
Under the boiler.
It's
and
acid.
and outside.
Actually, if you see the drain, probably it's rusted
Yeah.
because there's some kind of sulfuric acid.
Is,
Yeah.
is that the mass code? If somebody needs a new boiler, you tell them, oh, you gotta buy a condensing boiler?
I don't think that's the law, but I think there's a lot of incentive and rebates if you buy condensing boiler.
I see.
Yeah, so they try to incentivize, but they cannot force you to buy one. I don't think also the price difference that much when it comes to boiler, but the installation is a little bit more involved. Okay, so we have the controls, which we'll learn a lot about in the other class. The burner assembly, which in here, that's called the gun sometimes. Comes in a box in other cases. Combustion chamber, that's what's inside. That's the combustion chamber. How much heat are we going to put into it and how much flame?
So which one was the burner assembly?
This one, this thing. This is your burner assembly over here. Sometimes they call it the gun burner because it looks kind of like a small little pistol. And the neck, some of them like have longer necks. So, yeah. That's mostly for oil. Oh, they also have a similar one, looks the same for gas. It will shoot gas inside the chamber. Combustion chamber is inside here. Heat exchanger, that's over here. Vent
Where is it again?
in here.
Okay.
Actually, I will take 5 minutes, I'll bring the boiler so you can look at it. It's very interesting. Vent, piping goes in and out. Fuel supply, the supply has to come through the filter. But I said fuel because it could be coal, it could be pulverized coal, it could be oil, number 1, number 2 until number 6. But for residential, usually it's number 2. And also the gas, air intake. That usually comes in from here with the burner. So cycling is always wasting energy. What is cycling?
On, off, on, off.
On, off, we don't want that. So you want the burner to be running all the time with the right amount of heat. Small boiler running all the time, supply whatever heat you are losing. That is more efficient than having the cycling on and off. Yeah.
So let's say like in the summer, you still,
Huh?
in the summer you still have on?
No, you don't want it on.
Oh, so,
So
wait, so what? You said you didn't want it on?
no, you don't want it on off in the winter.
Oh, okay.
You want to be on for half an hour, then off for like 2 hours. You want to be consistent. Why? Let's think about it. Every time you heat the water, it's gonna go from room temperature, which is 60, to 180. So then you let it cool off completely, so you have to heat it again from 0 to 180. Meanwhile, if you keep it at 180, you have to supplement whatever you're losing in the house continuously. So this cycling does cause you to lose some efficiency. You don't want too much cycling. It's different if you just turn it on once a day and that's it. But if it cycles every hour, that's a lot of losses. And all the heat can go either to the basement or to the outside. Also, the heat is coming all the way from the basement. So when it comes from the basement all the way to the 3rd floor, 2nd floor, you lose some on the way. So the less cycling, the better.
And a lot of wear and tear on it too.
That's true. And also, do you notice that when you turn on the AC, it spikes until it stabilizes again? At the beginning, you have this like all the lights will dim when the AC comes out, because it spikes a lot of energy. So the less spikes you have and the more consistent temperature you have is better. Same thing with AC, so you don't want to get oversized the AC and have it cycle. It's very uncomfortable because that means it's going to be very cold and very hot. Very cold and very hot again, it's completely uncomfortable. Knowing the load requirement based on the building heat loss, which is the BTU lost, should be less than the BTU of the boiler. So you want the boiler to be at least 15% above the heat loss. Why is that? We did that last semester. We had a 15%. Why? Because the heat loss we calculated is based on keeping the house at 70, right? So what if the house is complete, is at 0 now, or at 50? Where are you gonna get the energy to get from 50 to 70? You have energy to keep it at 70. So you need to have 15% to go. It's gonna take you a while to keep the house from 50 to 70 and stay there. So that's why you need the heat loss to be less than the energy of the boiler. The boiler is not the entire system. So there's pipes, valves, and connections. So when you do your heat loss for the house, like we did last semester, it's not enough. That's the heat loss based on the walls and the structure. What about the heat loss in the pipes? What about the heat loss obstruction in the valves? So now we're gonna add all this into the equation and see how big of a boiler do we need. And what if you missize the boiler and you bring in 60,000 BTUs, meanwhile the house have 100? It's gonna work all the time and would never achieve the proper temperature. And this happens a lot, more than you think. So, yeah.
So that's what happened when the heat guy put in my
Yeah.
house.
True. It has to be sized correctly. Another mistake people do, especially with forced air, is they size the duct for cooling, then they add a furnace layer. Is that duct gonna be efficient? No. It's different BTUs for heat than the BTU for cooling. So the other way around could be better. If the furnace for forced air was designed for heat and you want to do cooling, probably you could. And the amount of the delta T is different for cooling and heating. That's start. So water versus air. Again, this is a big debate. Do we want to heat water or do we want to heat air? Again, it's a personal preference, also based on the application. With heating air, which do you think has more high heat capacity? By heat capacity, I mean the ability to absorb and hold heat. Water. Like you buy iced coffee, it takes an hour for it to melt completely, right? Meanwhile, if you heat the cup, it will cool off in 2 minutes. So air is faster to heat, but also faster to lose heat. Water or liquids, they have more heat capacity. They can hold more heat and they keep it for a while. You get a cup of coffee, it stays hot for half an hour at least, depending on manufacturer, of course, but it holds more heat. So which one do we want to use to transport heat? It is a function of cost and efficiency, and also noise. If you're gonna noise and distance, if you're gonna have the furnace in really far from the heating space, how long will it take for the air to lose its temperature until it get there? You can have temperature 120 at the furnace, but you go to the room, you put your hand, and it's not that hot. So it depends. You have to think about that. The other thing is, how fast do you feel the heat? Which is faster, water or air? Air. You turn on the furnace, you feel the hot air because we are surrounded by air, not by water. So air is touching you faster, so you feel faster, you feel hotter faster. So that's one thing people like about forced air. It's very quick. You turn it on within 2 minutes, the room is warm. Meanwhile, with water, you have to wait until the boiler heat the water comes to the radiator starts like heating the room. It takes at least 20-15 minutes to feel that, to stabilize. So there are always pros and cons, and again, there's no one size fits all. And it's also personal preference, how much money you're gonna put into it. A lot of people shy away from forced air because of the duct work. That's very involved. A lot of duct is not made on the spot, it's made in the shop. Somebody has to come and take measurement. They go into the shop, they manufacture the duct, they bring it over in a truck, they install it, so it's very involved to install duct.
Good, but
Huh?
the air is more efficient.
Again, it depends. How to dispense heat? It's a combination of water and air, especially in hydronic. So we're dispensing heat using the radiator here. The heat is coming through water, but then the heat is exchanged between water and air, right? Through the fins. So now, in the fin here, there's water, hot water, and the water is losing heat through the fins. So we're doing heat exchange again. So we did that twice. In the boiler, we exchange hot air with water in the heat exchanger, right? And then we're doing another heat exchange here, which also can carry out some losses. Every time you do a heat exchange, there are some losses. Question? Go ahead.
No, so you said it's losing heat as it's going through?
Yeah, it's supposed to. That's the goal. But as the water comes from here, if it comes here at 60 degrees, I always hope it comes out here about 55. Otherwise, it doesn't do the function. That's the idea of heat exchanger. Yeah. You want it to do it, otherwise it's not functioning. Yeah.
Still off topic, but steam, right? So steam, so water goes through like pipes and stuff and like the air, like through the duct, but how does steam circulate through the air?
Good question. So steam has a lot of energy, a lot of temperature. Steam uses latent heat. As steam becomes water, it will lose a lot of heat. So steam will get in contact with the radiator and start to condense, like this. Once it condenses, it loses heat. And that heat is stored in the radiator and then it dispenses to the air.
So how does steam go through like the rooms? Like you know like how like
Steam is kind of gaseous, so it moves from low pressure to high pressure. When it loses heat, it becomes low pressure.
but yeah, I understand that, but like you know how like air like it goes to like the I don't know what they call it.
There are steam radiators.
No. So you know like I'm gonna explain like what is that called again? I forgot.
Vent.
Yeah, the vent. So like the steam like goes to like how does it heat the room? You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
the steam goes through a steam radiator. It looks kind of like, I don't have a picture now, but it goes through loops.
Oh yeah.
So, if you haven't seen it before, probably it goes through. So you put in steam in here, and you have an air vent. And as the steam goes in here, it comes out here as water. It goes through those sections, it loses heat, condenses, it becomes water.
Oh, so what you're saying is steam goes through the loops, right? And you push air over it to move the heat from the loops to the area that you're trying to heat, I think at least.
No, the air is not, it's whatever is existing in the.
That's in a radiator you're drawing.
Yeah.
In a
Oh,
steam
okay.
radiator.
So the walls of the radiator here becomes hot. And as the wall gets hot, they start to,
Radiate.
yeah.
Okay.
You could probably put a big steam radiator with a fan blowing.
Yeah, you could.
That's what we got out
Yeah,
here,
you could.
right?
It's called, it's called a
So
convector.
that condensate water that just goes back, just returns back to the boiler?
Yeah, and gets steamed again. So if you look outside here, we have a big fan with a radiator in it, and that's steam going through it.
Through gravity.
Yeah.
And through,
It's gravity.
remote pumps.
Yeah. The pump-
Condensate pumps.
The pump is in the corner.
Right.
So the condensate all goes into a tank, and the pump pumps the water all the way to building 17.
Yeah.
So this is actually coming all the way to building 17. Good question. Okay. Hydronic versus duct air, boiler and furnace. Furnace heats air, and boiler heats water or steam. Okay, I will pause here.